item of business is a mid-year budget. Director Dayton, he will present the fiscal year 2025 mid-year budget.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members.
Good evening.
My first time here at the podium, so here we go. Let me make this work.
That's going.
Push down. There we go.
Push the right button.
I got it. Thank you. All right, mid-year budget presentation. Thinking about mid-year, really kind of state of the business, as well as the mid-year budget adjustments that are going to be proposed. Quick agenda, overview, introduction, talk about general fund and the rest of the major funds that we have here in the city of Gladstone. Thinking of mid-year, just kind of set the stage. All actual data, the results are through mid-year, through December, so we're 50% through the year from an actual standpoint as of the date of the presentation. Obviously, we're through January now, and those results will be forthcoming here in a couple of weeks. As we think about post December 31st, we've had significant inflows from a revenue standpoint, primarily property tax, just given the timing of that remittance. From a revenue perspective, citywide, pacing at 47.3% on a target of 50, so we're within the range. You can see the trend line there. The gold line is this year, blue line is last year, and then green line is the prior year. So right in the middle at this point. So right in the range, and I mentioned kind of the timing of receiving the sales tax remittance as well as property tax. So both of those should bolster our revenue as we move into the second half. Thinking from an expense standpoint, similar range, we're at 47.6%, below the 50% at this point, really around timing again. With debt payments, we got some considerable debt payments this month in February, that will hit, push us more into that 50% range. Other savings, open headcount, which is a historical saving that we've seen as we try to fill positions in multiple areas. And then we've got some lower supply costs. As we think about the mid-year budget request by a fund level, in aggregate, this chart really works from left to right, from a waterfall or a stair-step perspective, with the blue line being the grand total of $12.2 million will be the total in aggregate that we'll be talking about tonight, but the breakdown gives you a view by fund. General fund will be the first one we'll walk through. Kind of the same perspective here from as we stair-step to $1.6 million, that'll be coming out of the general fund. Kind of the breakdown there, 90% of that roughly is non-departmental. Then we follow by streets, IT of about 123, police 105, and then at fire 52, and then some smaller amounts from general admin and police. And then here's a line item breakdown of that 1.6 million. Just gives you a little more detail. I'm certainly not going to read through all those line items. The big chunk there is really in the middle with the non-departmental, the $925,000 is a transfer from the general fund to our capital improvement plan. And then we have $270,000 that we incurred at the first half of the month to pay down some of the AJ farm debt. From a revenue perspective, no changes in revenue for the general fund at this point. Revenue is still projected to be at $23.7 million. Here gives you a view of the general fund revenues from a composition standpoint. Certainly the majority there come from taxes. Then a few comments there. Prior year debt proceeds artificially inflate the fiscal year 24 number. So you see 24 actuals were what, 26.3. We're projecting 23.7. So it's almost exactly the amount that we had in debt proceeds in prior year. That drives the difference. Revenue in this fund's pacing at 45.5 budgeted. Same as the overall explanation, really around timing of tax remittances. So we would fully expect to move into that 50% range here, if not with January results here into February. From an expense standpoint, again, gives you kind of the composition breakdown. Just a couple of comments here. As expected, personnel expenditures continue to account for most of the general fund outlays, obviously, from a personnel perspective, followed by what looks like services, and then perhaps transfers in. Expenses here pacing below budget, also at 46.3 from a timing perspective. And then we'll talk a little more about the $925,000 transfer to capital improvement fund, which drives the majority of the transfers. And then from a fund availability, so this is still the general fund here, key drivers, AJ Farm debt pay down, which I already mentioned, the CIST fund transfer, which I mentioned, the 925, and then some reappropriations from prior year. I'll note one thing, if you look at the actuals, the ending fund balance there, 12.8 in 2024, 12.8 in 25 adopted, and then it shows a 9.6 number. That 9.6 number is closer to 11.3. We discovered a formula error in the spreadsheet right before the meeting, so that's 11.3 that were in the 25 amended plan. So difference of $1.6 million. Community Center Parks Fund. Again, kind of the waterfall is where we bridged to $433,482 in proposed transfers. The majority of this, 90% of it roughly, is around the pool filters and the video board. You can see those on the far left, $280,000 for the filters and another 110 or so for the video board. We've got another, 30 or so thousand in miscellaneous supplies, another pool pump, some roof repairs, a couple of comp adjustments for 2 different personnel to get us to the 433. And then here's a line item breakdown of the 433,000. Thinking about revenues, really it's the drawdown, which will drive the 433,000. So we'll draw that down, added revenue to this fund. Total of $5.2 million in amended revenue versus the adopted budget was 4.8 for the transfer. From a revenue standpoint, again, gives you a view of the composition of the revenues that hit this fund. And then omitting the fund balance drawdown of the 433, we don't have any other recommended changes at this time for this fund. Revenues pacing at 46.4 at this point. From an expense standpoint, the yellow really stands out on this one from a composition standpoint, and probably rightly so. This is artificial intelligence driven, and so they assign the colors. We do not, but the yellow is indicative of the debt we have with the community center. Parks Fund, which certainly caught my attention coming in as a new finance director, so certainly keeping an eye on that as we move forward. Debt service yields exceptionally large downward pressure, kind of to my point on the funds available to spend here. And then right now expenses are pacing at 51.1% of budgeted at this point, so still in line at this point with budget. And then available funds here, going left to right, 2.1 million in 04, adopted with 1.9. Now we're down to $1.5 million funds available here. You can see the 433 change. Expenditures increases while deemed necessary by management certainly pose a significant risk to the fund balance. And we'll certainly continue to keep an eye on this one and keep you apprised of how we're performing here going forward. Here's just a note on the operating expenses of this fund. Operating within plan and in good shape here is really the takeaway from this one. And then public safety sales tax fund. The story here is really around 2 additional police interceptors and the upfit charges that go along with that. Total of about $94,000. Really, this is a year-over-year issue. These are funds that were really budgeted prior year. The timing of when we procured the cars, or the automobiles spilled over to this year, and so we're seeing and incurring the cost in fiscal 25 versus 24. Just a line item of those two expenditures, if you will. From a revenue perspective, based on current revenue performance for this fund staff, we're not recommending any other changes to revenue, and it's currently pacing at 47.5 budgeted at this point. Revenues composition, pretty straightforward, 90% taxes here. Just a comment there, essentially all revenues for PSST are generated from the sales tax assessment approved by voters. Receipts are not immediately used, are invested for policy. So, right at 1.1 million. And then from an expense standpoint, as promised to voters, funding is used exclusively for fixed headcount, police officers, direct supporting expenditures. Expenses here are currently pacing at 58.7, and this is attributed to the two police interceptors. So once we make the transfer, we should be very much in line through mid-year. And then here it just shows you the available balance. 665 in 04, same thing was adopted in 05, or 25, I guess, and then amended at 571. This fund we consider stable, and but we'll continue to monitor given its extreme reliance on sales tax performance. Capital improvement sales tax fund itself, a lot of movement in this fund, which is I would say exciting. Got a lot of projects that are in flight now. Thinking from left to right, really driven 2.3 million, roughly 2.4 million. AJ Farm Improvements is a big contributor here of 800,000. The Northeast 66 Terrace and North Elefante Storm Drainage, another 550, 380 from downtown lighting, Florida Park Route 250, as well as the dog park, and then we got some smaller projects that contribute to this as well. The red bar represents the savings that we received in the latest bid. Really, that's tied to the parking lot savings. So a little give back, if you will. And then here's just a line item of those items that were reflected in the waterfall. If you think about revenues, mostly related to the change in the cost estimates for the AJ Farm Barn project itself. And then here's this $925,000 transfer again. This one-time transfer, we've got to maintain a minimum reserve in our fund, so we have to add to the fund to make sure we're at that threshold from a requirement standpoint. And then here's from available fund perspective for the capital improvement sales tax fund. 24 we were at 5.2, 25 adopted we were 5.8, and with a large transfer we're at 4.4. You know, as we look at this fund, we expect to continue to see significant strain on the fund balance for the foreseeable future, just given the large expenditures. As part of that continues to add additional pressure on this fund and may limit future projects. We'll continue to monitor that. So, transportation sales tax fund, 2.4 million proposed out of this fund. With the big driver of that, the street mill and overlay program of 950,000, then the connector 700, curb gutter and sidewalk of 300, north open 260, and then intermediate maintenance items of 200 to get us to the 2.4 million. Then here's a breakdown, just line item by line item. And then from a revenue perspective, composition, we're not recommending any other revenue adjustments at this time, outside of what we've already talked about. And then if you look at the 24 numbers, we're 8.5 versus 2.7 this year, again artificially inflated due to debt proceeds in 2024. And then fund balance, which is available after these proposed changes, will be at 5.8 off an adopted plan, where we're at 8.2. So we're down to 2.4 million in total that we're proposing. And again, much like the CIST fund, significant downward pressure on this fund for the foreseeable future. Staff are forecasting receipt of roughly 2.2 million in grants. This is a hot item, obviously, for the North Oak project, and certainly stating the obvious, if for some reason that grant was impaired, we'd be in critical territory with this fund. Capital equipment replacement fund, no changes to this one at all. I'll move through this one. Still a budget of 464 from a revenue and expense standpoint. And then our last one, the combined waterworks and sewer fund. A lot of movement in this fund, mid-year here, looking at an aggregate of $6 million worth of adjustments, heavily driven by the water plant improvements project, water towers another $2 million, and then we've got the next two line items are both with water main replacements. Originally at 600, we had another 150, just given the volume that we're seeing. So a total of 750, and then another 130 for sewer cleaning, increased line expense. Also upgrading our Neptune water meter reading system, which is causing us a severe amount of pain. And so we'll move more to the modern era with some new technology there. And those together get us again to that $6 million number. And again, the line item breakdown of those expenditures. And then from a composition standpoint, last year we were 13.3 in total, this year 13.2, so really much in line with year over year. Just a couple of comments here. This fund is designed to be self-sufficient without general city funds based off current performance. Staff do not recommend any other changes to revenue projections. Revenue is right on target at 50.4% of budget at this point. Just another footnote, water and sewer rates may increase this spring. It's under consideration, but we haven't updated any projections at this point to reflect those changes. And then from an expense standpoint, you can see the composition here as well, and see the large jump from 25 adopted of 13.2 million as we add that additional 6, we get us up to 19. And then essentially all changes in the mid-year relate to the long-term capital investments that we just outlined. Everything or most other operating line items remain constant. And then expenses here are pacing at 44.5. A big driver of that is really open headcount, having a tough time staffing in this department. And then available balance after the $6 million transfer leaves it at what, 13.3 off the adopted of 19.3, and which we had 19.3 in prior year. Certainly these high fund balances are historically planned. We've got these large projects coming. So kind of in summary and aggregate, there's the $12 million number. We started with that. We'll end with that. Just gives you the big hitters there again from a fund perspective. You know, looking at kind of how we move into the kind of the next phase of these projects and the next phase of the fiscal year. Certainly some things to look for, look ahead, while things we're keeping an eye on at the same time. The first one, kind of top of mind, reliability of the grant receipts from the federal agencies. Touched on that a little bit with the $2.2 million grant. Changes in sales tax performance, the marijuana sales tax receipts and application. I can tell you the marijuana fund that we've got now, breaking that out, will provide some more detailed reporting of that going forward in your monthly package. That fund is performing well and has really trended upward in recent months. Another thing we'll keep an eye on the changes in headcount for the various departments. Again, I touched on that a couple of times in regards to the challenges with recruiting. The 25 property tax reassessment period. And then just a few others here. Risk of statewide exemption of sales tax on food. I guess that is a topic that's out there at this point, so we'll keep an eye on that one. I mentioned the volume of water main breaks. It's been higher than historical, so we'll keep an eye on that one. Any other unforeseen capital expenditures, the senior property tax freeze potentially, and then really any other regulatory political impact. Obviously the political environment right now is a hot one, and we'll keep an eye on how that might impact us going forward from a revenue and expense perspective. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Any questions, please?
Director Dayton, I have a question. We're 12 million over at this point, or the request. What percentage is that?
12 million on well, it's a roughly what, 50% on from a revenue perspective. In a lot of these, keep in mind, a lot of these projects, the timing of these projects coming forward was after we baked our 25 budget. So a lot of these are adds, though they were on a radar, they weren't baked in our budget, so now we're adding them after the fact.
Very specifically, obviously.
Huh?
In yours specifically, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's one of the questions I asked too.
Okay.
You know, it's a significant number on top of our budgeted number. Why didn't work in the plan?
Yeah.
And so it's been explained to me it's really a matter of timing.
Okay.
So.
It's good to know.
Other questions?
Another comment on it. This is the best mid-year budget adjustment presentation that I've seen. So again, I appreciate the new format and the way for presenting the information. It really is much better. I also, well, it's not necessarily in here. Have we heard anything more on that $3 million from Congressman Cleaver on the HVAC replacement community center?
I haven't heard anything specific other than, you know, we're following the headlines. GFOA, which is one of the large agencies that within our space, they got a bulletin board update on that with frequently asked questions, et cetera. They're uncertain as well. They're just a scorekeeper, right? And so, reading some of their updates as late as today, we certainly see this back and forth between here's a mandated memo and here's a judge ordered suspension of that, and so we're back and forth. So nothing definite, obviously, at this point, but certainly the flavor, if you will, and the purpose of these funds, just my opinion, do not fly in the face of the mandates that have been given from the new.
Still hopeful.
So hopeful, we're moving forward. The latest on that is the environmental studies continue to move forward. We're hoping to have that done here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. As soon as that's done, we'll move forward with the RFP and other next steps. And so we're full steam ahead at this point. So.
Thank you.
I'm going to add, we're having internal discussions about trying to move that up, and once that's approved, trying to move that up so we can expend those as quickly as we can.
Thank you.
Director, I have a couple of questions, please. The capital improvement sales tax, obviously, there's some criticalness to that. Is there any of our debt that's getting ready to sunset in the next 5 to 10 years that you're familiar with?
I'm sure there is. I'm just getting familiar with what we call our debt books, which is a schedule of our debt. It's been a topic of conversation between Mr. Daniels and myself. Coming from the private sector, certainly I'm debt averse. Certainly the public sector, it's a little different from a funding perspective if you're looking at large projects and the sources of those. So, short answer is no. I don't know. I cannot equip to answer that right now. I don't know the debt book that well yet.
And then regarding staffing, we've got these open positions which offers us money, but it doesn't offer customer service. So, what are we doing on a whole for recruitment right now for staffing?
I think the shortages that we're having there is police and specifically paramedics, and then some public works positions we have a hard time filling. So I've directed Amanda, the HR administrator, to actually get some data here and find out where we are in the market in those areas specifically. Going into our fiscal year 26 budget, we'll have a better idea on how to recruit those.
That was going to be my next question about salary study and where we're at with that.
Yeah, specifically those key positions, I think it's important for us to look and see where we are in the market.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is the Antioch and Linden West Water Tower Painting Project. Director Nevergall.
Thank you, Mayor. So some of this you've seen before. We showed it to you at goal setting, but we're getting very close to ordering 400 gallons of paint. So I thought it might be a good chance to get in front of you one more time, make sure we're headed in the right direction, and make sure we're addressing any comments that you might have. So first up on your screen, you can see how the two water towers look right now. The Antioch water tower, which is a 1 million gallon water tower that's obviously over off Antioch Road, and then the Linden water tower, which is 300,000 gallons, which is located just over here off North Oak Traffic Way. I received a question today. The Antioch water tower is in service. It is full of water. The Linden water tower has actually been out of service for nearly 20 years now. But it is still a source of revenue for the city, also kind of a landmark for our community. So we want to continue that. So to continue, I want to start with just a couple pictures. This is what we presented at goal setting. These were the colors that I believe council thought was the direction we needed to go. So you'll see the blue belly and kind of standpipe, and then the actual logo that'll be installed on the tank. So what you're looking at is actually the Antioch water tower. And I'm going to just scroll through a couple of renderings here. Here's another one a little bit closer of what it would look like up close. Obviously that's 150 feet in the air, so that's really a up and close shot. And then one last from a different perspective. So that is the Antioch water tower. I'm kind of continuing at goal setting. We did not have a rendering of Linden just because we didn't know which direction we were going to go. So we did ask for a rendering of Linden, kind of a similar schematic, blue belly, blue standpipe, and then a white coating, and then of course the logo again. A couple different views of the Linden water tower. So that kind of gives you an idea what it should look like when it's done. And then briefly, just wanted to go through kind of a project schedule because things are going to start picking up here very quickly. Looking at actually trying to put the Linden water tower back in service late February, early March. As soon as we get out of hopefully this winter weather, we're kind of waiting for a nice warmer day. But when that happens, we want to put that back in service. We're hoping to have all of the cell phone antennas relocated by March 1st. That's been a little bit like herding cats, but it's going well. So there's a little bit of flexibility in there, but we're trying to have those off those towers by March 1st. And in your memo, I talked about how that's going to be done on temporary structures until they can be moved off the tanks and temporary structures and then moved back when the paint is complete. From April to June, and this is basically good painting weather, we're looking to complete the repairs on the Antioch tower and paint the interior and exterior of the Antioch water tower. So it's critical that we get Linden in service before we tackle painting and emptying the Antioch tower and then starting that work. Kind of continuing on that theme, May 1st, 2025, complete the temporary relocation of antennas on the Linden water tower. We are getting a little bit of pushback from the cell companies saying that we really would like to be done with Antioch before we have to get off Linden just because of redundancy in their system. The real critical part of this is to try to get Antioch painted before we get into the heat of the summer, before we get into water loss season, water breaks, just different things that happen. Peak water demand time for the summer. So I'm really trying to get that done by the end of June. And then in July, September, once the Antioch water tower is back in service, then we would move over to Linden and complete painting that. So there's actually a little bit of time there to get the Linden tower painted. So with that, that's kind of the project schedule. I did bring, and you've got a anemic paint book here in front of you. I was trying to try to find the best way to show you the color, but if you actually turn to it would be, well, we'll start with, go to the whites. The main part of the water tower would be anemic white, so that would be the top and the legs, and that's actually the color of the current towers. It's anemic white. And then you turn the page again and you get to the blues, and what we're looking at is blue channel. One of the things I'm going to ask, and I actually was going to try to get it for tonight, is we're going to try to get a paint sample of metal painted before we order all those gallons of paint, just to make sure we're on the right track and it's the color that we want. I mean, everybody's painted a room that didn't quite meet your expectations, but it wasn't 400 gallons of paint. So we want to make sure we get that right. But right now, we're looking at blue channel. Obviously, if you have concern with that, let me know. I don't have a great eye for colors, as my wife would tell you, but I just wanted to make sure that you got a chance to see it. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Director Nevergall. Appreciate it. We've got about 5 minutes for our meeting. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the regular city council meeting for Monday, February 10th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. here at Gladstone City Hall. Madam Clerk, please note all city council members are present and we have a quorum. Please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Moving on, item number 4 is the approval of the agenda. If there are no changes or objections to the agenda, it will stand as published. Changes or objections? Thank you. The agenda will stand as published. Item number 5, approval of the January 27, 2025 closed city council meeting minutes.
Here's follow.
Councilmember Moore.
I move for the approval of the January 27, 2025 closed city council meeting.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to approve the January 27, 2025 closed city council meeting minutes. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The closed city council meeting minutes from January 27, 2025 stand approved as published. Item number 6, approval of the January 27, 2025 regular city council meeting minutes.
Here's follow.
Councilmember Moore.
I move for the approval of the January 27, 2025 regular city council meeting minutes.
Second. There is a motion and a second to approve the January 27th, 2025 regular city council meeting minutes. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The regular city council meeting minutes from Monday, January 27th, 2025 stand approved as published. Moving on to item number 7. This is a very exciting opportunity to honor one of our volunteers, and Mr. Everett Jones. Please come on up to the dais. So we're here tonight to honor Everett and his service throughout the years. I've had the honor of working with Everett for a long time, and I think that we met one evening at a Friday Fright Night at Oak Grove Park. And so I was thinking about, thinking that far back and thinking about our times together and all the GEMA work that you did for us with the Parks Department, and it was always a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
So we've got a proclamation here signed by all the City Council, and I'd like to read that on your behalf. This proclamation recognizing Everett Jones for 14 years of outstanding volunteer service. Whereas the City of Gladstone is proud to acknowledge the dedication and selfless service of citizens who contribute their time, energy, and expertise to the betterment of the community. And whereas Everett Jones has generously volunteered his time and skills for 14 years as a volunteer for the City of Gladstone Emergency Management Agency, GEMA, demonstrating a deep commitment to the safety and well-being of its residents. And whereas throughout these years, Mr. Jones has consistently gone above and beyond the call of duty, selflessly contributing countless hours to assist in directing traffic during special events, ensuring safety and order. And whereas Mr. Jones has been a valuable and dependable partner in supporting fire department personnel at the scenes of fires, offering assistance when it was most needed, and contributing to the effectiveness of emergency response teams. And whereas his tireless efforts have helped maintain the safety, security, and well-being of our community, and his commitment to service has had a profound and lasting impact on the residents of Gladstone. Now therefore, I, Tina Spallo, Mayor of the City of Gladstone, on behalf of the members of the Gladstone City Council and all Gladstone residents, recognize and commend Everett Jones for his extraordinary volunteer service and dedication to our community. On this special occasion of marking 14 years of service, we express our deepest gratitude for his countless contributions and selfless commitment to making Gladstone a safer and better place for all. Signed this 10th day of February 2025. And we also have a commemorative plaque for Everett. I'd like to present you with that. Let's take a couple of photos before we do that. Okay?
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir. Great.
Moving on to item number 8, is communications from the audience. Members of the public are invited to speak about any topic not listed on the agenda. While speaking, please state your name and address for the record and limit comments to 5 minutes. Anyone interested in speaking this evening? Okay. We will move on then. Item number 9, communications from City Council. Councilman Davis.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Councilman Garnos.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to mention, January 31st, I had the privilege of attending the meet and greet with our local legislators, and Councilmember Moore was there. I don't know who else showed because it went on for quite a while, but it was an amazing crowd. Nice event put on over at the Innovation Center by the Economic Development Council. And then also wanted to mention that our very popular Board of Zoning Adjustment is canceled for next week. Thank you.
Councilmember Moore.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank Everett as well for all he's done for us. Those of us who've been around here for a long time, he was always there when we needed him, no matter what it was. And the best part is he'd always find a parking space for one of us, right? Events. Everett, we appreciate you, and thank you very much. I consider you a friend, and it's an honor.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Absolutely. I second that. Absolutely a friend. So thank you, Everett. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't speak about what happened last night in the Super Bowl. You know, despite the outcome, it's going to be a positive comment, I promise. Despite the outcome, we need to consider what has happened here, what our Kansas City Chiefs bring to Gladstone. You know, we've had an extra 2 months or about a month and a half of football. That's people every weekend going to Hy-Vee in Gladstone, Walmart, and you know, buying things, whether it be souvenirs or food or whatnot. It just generates more sales tax. And as we see, we just had our mid-year budget, report, and sales tax drives our city. And so it's always good to have a productive team here in the Metro. The Kansas City Chiefs just like to say thank you and congratulations on a fantastic year. Hopefully we will continue that effort next year. But now it's time for our Royals. So we'll move on and start selling some of that stuff. So that's all I have tonight. City Manager Bear.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll tell everybody that if you want to order a jersey, you can go on Fanatics or something like that, because we have a use tax as well.
That's
so
right.
Yeah,
Very good.
thank you. Hey, I want to mention that City Hall will be closed on Monday, February 17th, in observance of President's Day, and will reopen on Tuesday, the 18th at 8 a.m. And with the winter weather anticipated later this week, we want to remind residents to please avoid parking on the street if you can during the winter storm, so our crews can provide the excellent curb-to-curb service that they're used to when we're plowing the streets. To learn more about the city's snow removal process, you can visit the city's webpage. And finally, as another reminder, MoDOT is, I know everybody's driven up M1 and complained about it. MoDOT is planning a full-depth reconstruction of North Prospect from 72nd to 64th Streets, and then some overlay all the way down to I-35, I'm told. But to find out more about this and other improvements, you can go to the city's website. And I have had discussion with Director Nebegal about contacting MoDOT and at least patching it and making it halfway travel ready in the meantime. So, and that is all.
Thank you. Yes, it is quite a trip down Missouri 1 right now. So, and you know, especially for our service vehicles, you know, ambulances, fire trucks, all of our public safety vehicles. It's a lot of wear and tear, so hopefully, Director Nebegal, you can make some strides with MoDOT,
Doing it again, right?
or with MoDOT, and see if we can get those patched as soon as possible.
We'll be on the desk.
Moving on to our consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please explain and read the consent agenda.
A consent agenda allows the City Council to consider and approve routine items of business without discussion. Any member of the City Council, the city staff, or the public may request removal of any item from the consent agenda and request that it be considered under the regular agenda if discussion or debate of the item is desired. Items not removed from the consent agenda will stand approved upon motion by any council member, second and unanimous vote, to approve the consent agenda as published or modified. Consent agenda. Consider special event permits. Flashlight Easter egg hunt, Happy Rock Park East Sports Complex, Friday, April 11, 2025, 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock p.m. Walk and Wag, Atkins Johnson Farm and Museum, Saturday, April 19, 2025, 8 o'clock a.m. to 12 o'clock p.m. Civil War Muster, Atkins Johnson Farm and Museum, Saturday, April 26, 2025, 11 o'clock a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. Touch a Truck, Happy Rock Park West, Saturday, May 3, 2025, 9 o'clock a.m. to 12 o'clock p.m. Afternoon Tea, Atkins Johnson Farm and Museum, Saturday, May 10, 2025, 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock p.m. Movie Night, Atkins Johnson Farm and Museum, Thursday, May 29, 2025, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock p.m. Resolution R-25-08, a resolution declaring certain city property surplus and authorizing the sale and or disposal of such property held by the city to the highest bidder via online auction, sealed bid, and or otherwise disposed of as approved by the city manager. Resolution R-25-09, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a second amendment to a commercial lease agreement between the City of Gladstone, Missouri as sublessor and Curana Health Management Group, LLC as subleasee, to operate an office for a physician's medical director group at 7001 North Cherry, Suite number 202, Gladstone, Missouri 64118. Resolution R-25-10, a resolution authorizing acceptance of work under contract with Vance Brothers Incorporated for the fiscal year 24 intermediate maintenance project and authorizing final payment in the amount of $500 for project TP 2403.
Thank you. Does anyone from the audience, city council, or staff wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I will accept a motion.
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Davis.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented this evening.
Second?
Motion and a second have been made to approve the consent agenda. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, state aye. Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda stands approved. Moving on to our regular agenda, item number 12. First reading of bill number 25-06. An ordinance approving the final plat of a minor subdivision in the southwest corner, section 14, township 51 north, range 33 west in the city of Gladstone, Clay County, Missouri, and directing the appropriate officials to affix their signatures to said plat for recording.
Mayor Spallo.
Councilmember Moore.
I move to place bill number 25-06 on its first reading.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to place bill number 25-06 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? All in favor of placing bill number 25-06 on its first reading, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading bill number 25-06. An ordinance approving the final plat of a minor subdivision in the southwest quarter, section 14, township 51 north, range 33 west in the city of Gladstone, Clay County, Missouri, and directing the appropriate officials to affix their signatures to said plat for recording.
Mayor Spallo.
Councilmember Moore.
I move to accept the first reading of bill number 25-06, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of bill number 25-06, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of placing bill number 25-06 on its second and final reading, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading bill number 25-06. An ordinance approving the final plat of a minor subdivision in the southwest quarter, section 14, township 51 north, range 33 west in the city of Gladstone, Clay County, Missouri, and directing the appropriate officials to affix their signatures to said plat for recording.
Mayor Spallo.
Councilmember Moore.
I move to accept the second reading of bill number 25-06 and enact it as ordinance number 4.691.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of bill number 25-06 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.691. Is there any discussion? Councilman Garnos.
I think this is the first time I have seen a replat where we're dividing up one into two and we have one building that covers both. I think this is the first time I've seen that, and I'm not exactly sure how that works. I'm wondering, is there an advantage to this for the city, and what happens if one of the plats wants to do something else?
So it's actually a strip center right now off of North Oak, and I think there's actually 5 suites in there. This particular owner, Mr. Charles Boyer, is in the audience tonight. He owns, I believe, 2 of those 5 suites, and then the other 3 are individually owned. And the way that you can think about it is they're condoed out in a way. And so the desire here is Mr. Poisner, he wants to replat these office suites, that way he can sell them to the tenants that occupy them right now. So it's actually already existing within the strip center. He's just doing it to the tenants that he actually rents to right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen this before.
It doesn't come up very often, but it's not uncommon here in Gladstone to have a strip center where there's 3 or 4 suites that are all individually owned by different ownership.
But they're all under one plat of land.
Yes, sometimes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Davis?
Aye.
Councilman Garnos?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Spallo?
Aye. Bill number 25-06 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.691. Item number 13, first reading, bill number 25-07. An ordinance authorizing the city to participate in the Missouri Highway Safety Program and receive grant funds under the terms outlined by the Missouri Department of Transportation for the purpose of increased enforcement of traffic laws.
Here's follow.
Councilman Garnos.
I move to place bill number 25-07 on its first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to place bill number 25-07 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? All in favor of placing bill number 25-07 on its first reading, state aye. Aye. Any opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading bill number 25-07, an ordinance authorizing the city to participate in the Missouri Highway Safety Program and receive grant funds under the terms outlined by the Missouri Department of Transportation for the purpose of increased enforcement of traffic laws.
Here's follows.
Councilman Garnos.
Move to accept the first reading of bill number 25-07, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of bill number 25-07, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of placing bill number 25-07 on its second and final reading, state aye. Aye. Any opposed? Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading bill number 25-07, an ordinance authorizing the city to participate in the Missouri Highway Safety Program and receive grant funds under the terms outlined by the Missouri Department of Transportation for the purpose of increased enforcement of traffic laws.
Here's follows.
Councilman Garnos.
I move to accept the second and final reading of bill number 25-07 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.692.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of bill number 25-07 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.692. Is there any discussion?
Here's follow.
Councilmember Moore.
I wonder if it might be helpful for the benefit of our audience if we had just a brief explanation of what we're doing here.
Well, you,
Yes.
ask.
We participate in, the state of Missouri offers several traffic enforcement grants, and it's really kind of a win-win. Some of them are targeted towards maybe seatbelt enforcement, some are targeted towards aggressive driving, DUIs. And so our officers have the opportunity to sign up on their time and work basically as extra duty, and then we get reimbursed. They actually get paid, I believe, double time. So it's kind of a good thing because often, you know, our officers, depending on the times they're working, depending on call load, staffing levels, we all want to be out there, you know, enforcing the traffic laws. Sometimes day-to-day life doesn't allow them to spend as much time as we would like them to be able to during their normal shifts. But by this way, they can sign up, they get paid double time, it costs the city nothing. We're getting some, you know, dangerous drivers off the street, and it benefits kind of everybody. So that's kind of in a nutshell, if you have any questions.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
Councilman.
As we represented earlier, we have a shortage of officers at this point. Is this pulling any officers that we need to patrol the city for this?
No. All of these they're strictly voluntary. If we don't sign up, we don't sign up. And it's officers signing up on their off time to do it. So it's not pulling people off the street that are already scheduled to work, that are covering districts, answering calls. So yeah, this is on their time. They're signing up. And, you know, like I said, it's kind of a win-win. It gives us an opportunity to do some added, needed traffic enforcement, specifically in areas and for things that are more dangerous and more of a public safety issue. It does not affect staffing during the normal work hours, so we still have officers on shift able to answer calls for service and do their, you know, normal routine patrols and traffic enforcement. But it also gives the officers an opportunity to earn extra money, like I said, at double time, and does not cost the city. So.
I'll add real quick that it does, correct me if I'm wrong, it does encompass underage drinking and the sale of alcohol to minors as well, right?
Yes, they also have a grant. I don't know if it's covered under this one, under the traffic grant, but we do participate in another city grant that specifically is for underage drinking enforcement, at which time when they do this, we'll use a young looking adult 18 or 19, they're an adult but not old enough to buy alcohol in the state of Missouri. And we'll have officers, and we'll go in, and basically every time they do this, they try to hit every establishment in Gladstone that sells alcohol, and to see if people will sell to and under. There's no subterfuge, they don't have fake IDs. If asked, they tell them how old they are, they just go in and try to buy alcohol. So that's another thing that the state's really big on, and it's important because, we don't want kids getting alcohol that shouldn't have it, and young adults, and so we do that also.
I am familiar with that operation.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Appreciate it. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Davis?
Aye.
Councilman Garnos?
Aye.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Spallo?
Aye. Bill number 25-07 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.692. Item number 14, resolution 25-11. A resolution authorizing acceptance of work under contract with Landtel Communication Services Incorporated for the fiscal year 23 curb, gutter, and sidewalk program Phase 2 project, and authorizing final payment in the amount of $35,079.02 for project TP2304. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Spallo.
Councilman Davis.
I move to approve resolution R-25-11 as presented.
Second?
Is there any discussion? All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution R-25-11 stands approved. Is there any other business to come in front of the City Council tonight? Hearing none, we're adjourned.